remember when I went in for the whole 9 yards, that Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to go. I was in a bad mood. I was going through a fight with my girlfriend. It was weighed down away from my house. I couldn't find parking. I just didn't want to. I went as a technicality. My agent said, go. It's Bruce Willis movie. I said, all right. I sort of looked at my lines, you know, but... and I remember I plopped down, and the director was this fancy older British guy, you know, and he sat down, and he was excited to see me, and he goes, "Okay, Harland, did you read the script?" And I just looked. I said, "Sir, I'll be honest, no." I told you I was honest, right? And his face just dropped, right? Like he looked so insulted. And he said, well, let's go ahead and read. And I read, and I thought, it's done. Drove home, and I ended up getting the part.
Isn't that so weird how the ones you think you're not going to get?
Yeah.
Tell me some parts that you wanted that you didn't get. Is there like movies that you're like, I tried for that so hard?
Well, one that I really regret that I blew. Like, I to this day, I'm so mad at myself. Like, my agent said, hey, you're going in to read for this. It's like a war movie. And I said, okay. And they go, well, what's the part? And it's this guy. And it's sort of an Italian name, so I thought I'll do a bit of a voice, you know, I'll be this kind of guy. He's like a soldier, he's kind of a tough guy, you know. And I didn't really pay that much attention to it, and I went in and I read, and I knew I didn't do a great job. It was like a 60% effort,
right?
But at that point, remember, I was starting to get offered lead parts, and so to do a bit part, I was sort of like, I'll read for it.
No.
And it was one of these, I go in and read, and then I, later that day, it didn't happen. Too bad. It's a Spielberg movie. And I go, wait, what? And they go, it was Saving Private Ryan. And I go, if I had known, I would have got 100%. But that one hurt.
I see that one where I see you go to be the Italian guy. You go to get that role. And then I see them going, he ain't that guy. But you know what? It would be good if he was the comic guy. Like if they put a funny guy, kind of make things lighter.
Yeah, a funny guy in the middle of what's that beach? Burgundy Beach?
Normandy.
Yeah. Burgundy. Ron Burgundy Beach.
Yeah, that was crazy. Do you know that I've never done anything movie-wise or anything like that, but I went out to dinner with a bunch of agents one time.
Yeah.
And the lady was like, one of the agents from LA was like, do you act? And I said, no. I said, I think I'd be horrible at it. And she goes, you have a look that we're looking for a movie. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't say I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, it's a movie. They're looking for Italian types, I go a Sopranos thing, and she's like, I go, if you need a fat Italian guy, so carrying on with it, and then the movie gets delayed because the director's wife is really ill, and I'm like, okay, it kind of blew my mind. Then I get a script, and it's to be a driver for a mobster, and I went, I actually think I could pull that off, and I'm all excited about it. And then I end up, I don't know, for one reason or another, I think I might have auditioned for it, or I did. I definitely didn't get the job. It turned out it was De Niro's driver in The Irishman.
Damn.
I've never done it. Can you imagine? They were like, but that's Scorsese. He likes bringing people who don't act into the fold. I thought, that'd be how intimidating. I wouldn't even been able to stand in the room.
You smash the car, run over his foot.
Yeah.
I would have been a mess, man.
I did a movie with De Niro and Dustin Hoffman, and it was that feeling.
What was that movie?
Wag the Dog.
Oh, I loved Wag the Dog. I couldn't.
Yeah, and I did a scene where I was in the room. I had a scene I only had one scene. It was a bit part, and it was with Dustin Hoffman, and then Robert De Niro was standing beside us. I didn't have lines with De Niro, but just feeling his presence.
Yeah.
And I was one of those guys, I don't go up to people and, hey, mister, can we do a picture? I just kept my mouth shut. I thought, he's De Niro. If he wants to say hi, he will. And I think I was on set for 3 days, never said a word. And at one point, we just looked over, we caught each other's eye, and he just kind of went, he gave me like a nod, like that, kind of sucked his lip in, and I was like, "That's good enough for me."
Right.
Yep. And it was, but you're right. You feel the presence. My scene with Dustin Hoffman, we were doing the scene here. I'm standing with Dustin Hoffman, and he goes, we did a take, it was David Mamet's script, and
that was a great movie.
It was a good movie, and Dustin's like, okay, this time let's do this, and you say this, and I'll do that, and then we'll do it. And I'm just nodding my head. I'm like, okay,
whatever you want, Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, and then we do the scene. The director. What was the director? The guy who directed Rain Man. Barry Levinson. Levinson goes, action, and we do the scene again, and we run through it, and then he yells, cut, and then Dustin just looks at me, goes, you didn't do anything I said. And I was just honest again. I said, Mr. Hoffman, I'll be honest. I'm just so stunned that I'm here with you. I didn't hear a word you said. Because when he was talking,
did he appreciate that, or was he like, oh,
he sort of giggled, but he just sort of looked mystified, and he didn't talk to me for 2 days outside of doing our lines. Right, I think at his level, he's like, this guy's just a kind of a talking extra almost. Yeah. And on the final day, I was standing on my spot, like looking over my lines, and I look over. He's on the other side of the studio, and this young boy comes in. It was his son, probably about 14. And I kind of look over, and all of a sudden they're both pointing at me. And I'm like, oh no, he's pissed. Yeah. He's like, him and his son come running over. Dustin he looks all fight. He goes, were you the cop in Dumb and Dumber? And I said, yeah, and he hugged me. He wouldn't shut up. He was like my best friend for that last afternoon. Like when I was, he's, we'll see you later, man. Like he was hugging me. I couldn't believe it. So his son,
the kid saved you, yeah.
But the kid turned him on to who I was, because Dustin clearly knew the role too, and I was just like, wow, it was just a total. Not that he was being a douche or anything.
No, but he had extra love for you.
Yeah, he suddenly kind of it just sort of it
Do you
was
realize
fun.
how big that is? Even Gio, our producer, when I said, Harland Williams would talk about movies, he goes, Dumb and Dumber, that's all you need. He was in Dumb and Dumber.
It's ridiculous that how much mileage that little role got. I mean, I just did a thing at Joe Rogan's club, at the Mothership, and Adam Ray's doing this Dr. Phil character.
I love it.
Yeah, and he had me on as the guest, and I just thought we were going to goof around, and Adam's like, tell the story about Dumb and Dumber, how you got that part. It's just, I don't know, that silly little moment resonates and it sticks with people. So I'm grateful, but it's weird to me, to be honest.
It's it's in that genre of that iconic comedy movie now. So it's not just a silly movie. It's the movie from that decade.
Well, I get it, Jim, with the whole movie, but the fact that my little moments resonated so much, I'm super grateful. But I got to be honest, it mystifies me. But I'm glad because it's 30 years old now. Yeah, unbelievably, but people still remember it and memorize it, and it's bizarre.
That's awesome. Harland Williams is here with us. He's going to be at Side Splitters. You got 2 shows today, 7:30 and 10, and then Saturday night, 7 and 10 o'clock. You still like going out on the road and doing the comedy?
I love it. I love it.
All comics say that, man, but I feel like it's such a pain in the ass.
Well, there's elements like the going to the airport and all that is definitely the worst. Yeah. But you do it. It's a job. It's a gift. Yeah. To be able to do what we do. I mean, I used to be a lumberjack, for God's sake, so I know what it's like to do manual labor.
Did you really? Were you in Canada?
Yeah, in Canada. I did everything. Fish and wildlife work. I was a lumberjack. I was a canoe guide. I was a tree planter.
I was talking about it this morning. I used to drive a forklift.
Yeah. I mean, and it's great work. That's good, hardy work. But, when I have to get on a plane and sit in first class and show up at a nice hotel and then go and get up and make people laugh, that's a real gift. I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
And the fact that I call myself a door-to-door salesman, and my product is joy. Laughter is joy. So to bring laughter to people, it just keeps my spirit fueled, man. It's a gift.
I have to be honest. You've been on this show a lot over the years. Yeah. We're in a different studio, so I don't know if you recognize it, but you've always been great. You've always been. Certain guests have been on a lot, and they're hit or miss. You know what I mean? Okay. You always bring the same energy every time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I love hearing those. I love hearing those audition stories.
Yeah.
These are things things that we never, average citizens never get to experience, never get to hear about. We just assume you walk in and it's an easy trip to get in the movies, man. But that's a tough battle for you guys, even famous guys.
Well, I'll tell you, if you want to hear one of my funniest audition stories, there was this show called what was the one? It was Jason Lee, the skateboarder guy. He did
My
that
Name
show.
is Earl.
My Name is Earl.
Yeah.
It was a huge hit on NBC. And they brought me in to audition for Earl, for the main role. And I thought, this is kind of cool. He's sort of like a goofy slacker, white trash type of trailer park guy. I thought, this is like, look at me, you know?
Perfect.
And so I go in to meet the top producers and the show creator. It's a guy and a girl. And one of my tricks to audition, especially because I do comedy, when you go into a room, you sort of want to take the energy away from them and make it a world where you're comfortable.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you want to create your own energy and vibe so that when you perform, you're in your own comedic kind of bubble, right? You create this ambiance. And my trick used to be I'd walk in and inevitably they'd always say, "Hey, Harland, how are you?" And my trick to level the room to my wacky sense of humor, they go, "How are you?" I'd say, "Not so good." And they'd be like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And I said, "Well, on the way over here, I hit a dog." And they're like, "Oh my God, you hit a dog?" And I said, "Yeah, it was horrible. I hit a dog. It bounced down into a ditch, bounced up and hit a little Korean boy on a bicycle. I killed a dog and a boy on the way over here." So now but I'll drag it out so they're laughing by the end of it. And now I've got them in the Harland sort of weird zone. I've set the table, right?
That's genius.
And now mentally, I'm in my own little room, and now they're guests in my room. I'm not guests in theirs. It really worked for me.
That's great.
And so now I go in for My Name is Earl. There's a woman and a guy, creator and producer. And of course, "Hey, Harland, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, not so good." "Oh, what's wrong?" "I hit a dog on the way over." The woman immediately goes, "Oh my God, you hit a dog!" Like freaked out. And it was something I'd never seen before. And she goes, "Oh my God." And then she, instead of just letting me get to my next bit, she did an immediate follow-up question. She goes, "Oh my God, is it okay?" And so now I'm like,
Threw you off.
Now I'm off my game, and I went, yeah, it's okay. I saw it in the rearview mirror. I just clipped it. And she goes, "You left it on the road?" You know? Oh my God. And dude, her eyes start watering. And I'm like, I said, "Yeah, it's okay. I think I saw someone just, oh my God." She starts literally weeping. And I go, "I didn't hit a dog. It never happened."
She's like, "Why would you say?"
Exactly. It was done. I never got My Name is Earl. Although 2 years in, I did a guest appearance on the show.
Was she still upset?
I didn't even see her. I think she was at Stephen King's house eating Cujo or something. I don't know.
Did you see that on a side note? Stephen King's writing a sequel to Cujo.
Oh, really?
I read that this morning.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you ever read a Stephen King book?
Oh, tons of them. Yeah, I'm reading one right now, a bunch of his short stories. Yeah.
I can't imagine how that's scary. They're about the dog.
Yeah, and it's a lovable Saint Bernard. You know what I mean? It was never that
in the movie,
scary.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when a domestic dog goes it becomes like a werewolf.
Fat,
it's like,
slow dog too.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know. And if you watch the movie, it's an incredible movie. I rewatched it a few years ago, and it's unbelievable. It's a 2-hour movie, and the first hour and 50 minutes is literally a soap opera. It's about the wife and the husband breaking up. In the last 10 minutes of the movie, she drives to this guy's house for some reason, and Cujo, who has rabies, attacks the car.
Yeah.
It's the last 10 minutes of a 2-hour movie. It's the worst.
I'm sure he hates. That's why he hates all those movies.
Oh yeah, imagine them taking your work and making it into a movie. But Cujo, it's like every time they cut to Cujo, he looked different. Like, 1 minute he'd just be sort of like kind of sweaty, and then the next shot he's got like Hellman's mustard on his eyes, and he's got relish in his hair, and a tampon stuck to the back of his ear. It's just like, what the hell? It's just like horrible.
Where do you live in LA?
Nosy. No, I live in the hills, Hollywood Hills. Yeah.
I'm going there first weekend in May, or the second weekend in May.
Oh, cool.
I love it. I love it out there. It's still pretty. It's still has its issues, the homeless people and all that stuff. But it's sad to drive through certain areas. But man, I do love it out there. I really do.
Yeah, there's a vibe. I mean, it is the entertainment capital of the world. There's an energy. There's a feeling, but it is like on the surface, it's rough. It's getting worse. The crime, the homelessness, the lack of governing. It's just like it's shameful. They think they're helping people, but they're just making life more miserable for everyone.
I went there and it was bad, and then I went back later in the year, and I think it got worse. Like it just keeps getting worse.
Well, it's going from homeless to motor homeless. Like now, it used to be 2 years ago. It was tents all the way up and down the sidewalk, and now somehow the homeless have the money to buy a Winnebago.
But the Winnebagos have no engines in them. They're buying vehicles that don't run and parking them on the streets and living in them.
Yeah, they're Walter White, like crystal meth trailers. Yeah. And now instead of tents, you've got the streets are lined with these dirty, horrible camper trailers, and they're in front of people's homes. They're in front of businesses. It's amazingly wrong.
We had a kid that lived in Lakeland, which is north of here, and he decided he wanted to move to Hollywood and become an actor. This is a different kind of live in your car story.
Yeah,
he went out there, couldn't afford to be out there, but was getting auditions and was getting on shows.
Okay.
And stuff. So he bought a van. Mm-hmm. The van doesn't drive.
Okay.
Had the van towed in front of an area in front of one of those gyms where he can go take a shower and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then would either ride his bike or take an Uber to his auditions all the time from the van, but just slept in the van.
Right.
And then was doing art and selling his art to like pay for his food and stuff.
Okay.
So the kid was making a life. Eventually he got himself a job at a church, and they let him live in one of the rooms of the church, so he was doing good. But I went to pick him up over there just so he could show me around. And you're right. Every street in front of every house, anything that is a van or bigger is somebody living in that thing. Tarps drawn over them and all that. It's
garbage.
Crazy.
They throw their garbage on. See, at least your guy, it sounds like he was legitimately pursuing something and trying.
Yes.
Which still doesn't justify parking in front of people's homes. But a lot of these people are not doing that. They're just existing and feeding off the government and doing drugs and who knows what. So it's sad to see. I feel for those people in the street, but
also
it's not the right move, man.
Yeah.
It's disrupting society. It's just not good.
Well, dude, our show's over, and believe it or not.